Ladies and gentlemen, I have something very special to show you today. It's basically an instant DOS game collection. And the really interesting thing is that both this computer, which I'll get into the specs in a minute, as well as this giant collection of disks, come from the same owner. These are literally the disks that were used with this computer back in 1991 to 1994 or so. So what I want to do is talk a little bit about the specs of the computer. I'll give you some lore about the computer from the computer's original owner, and then I'll get into some of the discs and show you what this gentleman played in the 90s, of which we'll try to install as many of them as we can on the computer in a future video. So first up, you have this machine, and it looks pretty old, right? And you might have seen this kind of case design used. It was a case that was popular in the early 90s for kind of hobbyists and like build your own computer people. I think it was manufactured by a Taiwanese company, and you can see them periodically on eBay or otherwise. It's not like a OEM machine like a Gateway or a Dell or something like that, but it was something that if you were a small computer shop and your business was making computers for people back in the early 90s, or if you were a hobbyist buying your own parts and wanted to make your own machine at home, you'd probably get a case like this back in the early 90s. It's got some interesting features. It's got the LED display here that displays the clock speed. Really, it displays the number, whatever number you set it to, but most people set it to display the clock speed of the CPU. You have your power and reset buttons. You have a lock, so you can lock the case. Um, this is actually just a cosmetic cover for a 3.5 drive bay. It's part of the case itself and isn't itself actually a disk drive. Then you have the typical disk drives you'll see on computers of that vintage, as well as a early CD-ROM drive. Turns out I believe it's a Panasonic CD-ROM drive with a proprietary Panasonic interface from the early 90s before the IDE standard was in vogue for things like CD-ROMs. So anyway, where did this computer come from? There was a gentleman on the DOS gaming subreddit on the site reddit.com, and he mentioned that he had this DOS machine kicking around that he had owned since it was new back in the 90s, and basically hadn't really used it for a very long time, maybe 20 years or more, and it was kind of, in his words, kind of taking up space in his room, and he wanted to get it to people who might be interested in it. So I contacted him, some other people contacted him expressing interest, and ultimately it wound up coming to me. Um, when it came to me, I opened it up and had a look at kind of what the specs were. So it's I guess technically a 486, but it's not a typical kind of Intel 486 DX33 or DX66. It's actually what's called an IBM 486 SLC2 CPU. And what that is IBM, I guess, got the ability to make their own 486 CPUs for what were essentially 386 class motherboards. It, um, it was a CPU that used the 486 instruction set. It did not have a built-in floating point unit like the Intel 486DX CPUs had. And the motherboard itself otherwise was quite similar to a 386 era motherboard. So this has a 25 megahertz front side bus speed. The CPU itself has a clock doubler in it. It's clocked at 50 megahertz. So this is a 486 SLC2 at 50 megahertz. And by the way, the acronym SLC apparently stood for super little chip. I guess that's how IBM considered it at the time. Performance wise, that CPU was not really at the level of something like the 486 DX66. It certainly was a 486. It could process 486 instructions, but it would be comparable maybe to a lower end 486 like a DX33 or even a 486 SX. So in addition to that CPU, this computer also has a separate math coprocessor in it, and you saw that mostly in the 386 era. These math coprocessors were marketed as a way to speed up your computer, but in reality, it wasn't really useful for things like video games where you'd really want the speed. Instead, the software had to be specially programmed to use it, and it was most commonly used with things like CAD software and other kind of business development software that used some graphical component to it. So neat to have, and technically in some ways you could say it speeds up this machine, but it's not actually used by things like Wolfenstein 3D or Doom or something else of that era that you'd be able to run on this machine. So other specs on this machine, it has a whopping 4 MB of RAM. The original hard drive, which appears to be defunct and not working these days, and I wasn't able to get any files off of it using some tools I have. It was about maybe 30 or 40 megabytes, I think. Let's go around back and just make sure I haven't forgotten anything interesting. So your typical power supply unit here. You have things like parallel and serial cable connections. This is actually, these ports are related to a floppy drive and hard disk drive controller ISA card. And these ports here are attached via ribbon cables to that card. I have here kind of the modern IDE, 2 compact flash adapter, which is a popular choice for using in lieu of hard drives these days with old systems. So these days the hard drive itself, the data is all on this little compact flash chip that I've set up to boot into DOS or Windows 3.1. So then another interesting aspect is the sound card in this machine. So these are the ports for the sound card here. This is actually a MediaVision Jazz 16 sound card. This is, you may have heard of MediaVision. They did the well-known Pro Audio Spectrum line of sound cards in the early 90s, and the Jazz 16 was a type of sound card that they came out with after the Pro Audio Spectrum series. And what's interesting about the Jazz 16, it has pretty good sound fidelity, better than kind of the original Sound Blaster. I believe it has a genuine Yamaha synthesizer on it as well for FM music. And it also, at least in this case, the version that's in this PC, it has multiple connections on it for CD-ROMs. Back in the day, sometimes it was common for sound cards to have ports on them to interface with, for instance, the proprietary Panasonic CD-ROM drive interface, or a port for the proprietary Sony interface, or something along those lines. So that's actually what we have here. We've got this sound card. It's the MediaVision Jazz 16. It's a good sound card, and that's how the CD-ROM is connected in this PC. And the sound card, it's not plug and play. It does need its own driver to be loaded in config sys in order to activate it on boot up, but it's pretty good quality. I'll be demonstrating that in a future video. I have not been able to get the CD-ROM drive to work yet, but amongst the floppy disks that are in the floppy disk collection that came with this computer are the original installation disks for this sound card and the CD-ROM drive. They were sold together in a kit, the MediaVision Multimedia Kit. So I'm looking forward to trying to install or reinstall the card rather, using the genuine files on the genuine disks that came with it in the CD-ROM drive back in the day, and hopefully that fixes things up. And then below the sound card here is the video card, an ISA video card plugged into the AT bus there. In this case, it's a Trident video card from around 1992 or so. I think it's called the Trident 8900 or something like that. When the computer came and I was first testing it out, it would not boot up at all, and instead it wouldn't display any video signal, and instead the computer would just emit a series of beeps. And I was able to figure out that the number of those beeps corresponded to an error message generated by the BIOS on the motherboard, telling me that at the very least the video card, that there was something malfunctioning with it. So, I took it out, I tried it in different slots, I cleaned it up, but I was not able to get the original video card to function on this computer, which was also a Trident video card from the early 90s. So I hopped on eBay and invested some money there and got another Trident video card that was comparable to the one that had been used in this PC back in the day. And luckily, that one worked, and that helped me get this computer up and running. So that is a pretty good overview of the specs of the computer. Now I'm just going to tell you a little bit of the lore of the computer, since I got this from the original owner and I was able to ask him a couple questions about how he got it and kind of the personal history of it. So essentially, here I'll read it, kind of his words from some of the conversations that we had about this. When I was about 9 years old in 1991 or so, I wanted a Super Nintendo for Christmas. My parents got me this machine instead. I knew nothing about computers and had to figure out DOS through video game installation instructions. I'm pretty sure my dad got it out of some small strip mall hardware shop where some guy probably built this with parts and sold at a markup. It came with a handful of bootleg games and had a very slapdash software setup. No idea what that sticker meant. I thought of it as an IBM back in the day because that's what it said when it booted up. The sticker he refers to is this sticker here for Computer Station, which is on the case. And if you were to see this case on another computer, either this square area here would be blank, or it might have another sticker on it, generally perhaps from the business that put it together. So perhaps the business that made this computer back in the day and sold it to this gentleman's parents, maybe it was, maybe they went by the name of Computer Station. Anyway, back to the personal lore here. The gentleman says, my first non-edutainment game that I bought for it was King's Quest VI, which looked better than any video game I'd ever seen up until that point. I spent a lot of time playing that early on, and it's still a favorite of mine. I played a lot of other Sierra games, a lot of dungeon crawlers, Wizardry 7 and Dark Side of Xene being two of my favorites. I played classics like XCOM and Doom. Another all-time favorite was Master of Magic. That's a game I still play every now and again, and I even played the first Elder Scrolls game on this machine. A bunch of Dungeons and Dragons games too, and later games with VGA graphics. I still have just about every floppy disk I ever bought, hundreds of them probably, and almost certainly useless since that technology isn't known for longevity. I wonder if anyone would want those. Cue me saying that, yes, I would be interested in those, and here they are, hundreds of floppy disks. Again, we'll sort through those towards the end of the video here after I get through some more of the lore. So let's see. The gentleman says, this was pretty much my only computer until college. I last used it somewhere in the mid-2000s. I played Master of Orion on it then, and probably a few others. At some point, I made the kind of move that involved putting everything I could fit into a Honda Civic and driving 9 hours away. The tower came with me, but the peripherals were abandoned. And these days, websites like goodoldgames.com and emulators like DOSBox basically give all the options and fulfill kind of the desire to play DOS games. So as the gentleman says, I haven't really needed to use this thing. Later on, the gentleman and I, we were talking about video games that he might have played on this machine to kind of flesh out the story there. He mentions he did play lots of shareware and probably has most of that on the floppy still. Stuff like Duke Nukem, Commander Keen, Jill of the Jungle, other games. Apogee was great for that sort of stuff, he says. He played plenty of Wolfenstein and dozens of similar early first-person shooter games. He could only run Doom after upgrading the system. He had played the game Stunts and made certain custom Stunts racing tracks, which I've actually just recovered earlier today, and maybe I'll demonstrate those in a future video. Additionally, he played the well-known game TIE Fighter, as he puts it, sell one of the best space sims I ever experienced. I played the first Warcraft on this machine, and that's pretty much it. Surprisingly, he used this PC basically throughout the 90s. He had to load about only a handful of games at a time onto the hard drive due to its very limited space, and now it's with me to explore along with the various software that this gentleman has. I'm gonna have to check the battery on my phone quickly, so I'm gonna end this video prematurely. But I'm about to get into the software that it came with. It's some very interesting stuff here, so stay tuned.